What if I told you the deadliest mistake people make when they prep for a survival situation? And I'm not even talking about some Hollywood apocalypse. I mean any hard, resource-starved environment where you're on your own. Here's the kicker. It has almost nothing to do with picking the wrong caliber. The real threat is betting your life on a handgun that's too complicated to keep running when there isn't a single gunsmith left on Earth. Welcome to the Armory. Today we're counting down the best handguns for SHTF survival. We're talking 6 practical, near indestructible machines. The kind that will chew through mud, swallow sand, endure total neglect, and still go bang when you need it most. These aren't safe queens. These aren't weekend range toys, honey. These are the tools that keep you breathing when the grid drops and supply chains disappear. If you like practical, no-nonsense firearms insight, without the flashy gimmicks or industry hype, consider subscribing and joining the Armory community right now. All right, let's get into the countdown. Number 6, FN509. To understand why this pistol earns a spot, you've got to rewind to the U.S. Army Modular Handgun System competition. FN Herstall built this platform with one mission: survive the nastiest torture testing of the 21st century. During development, FN and engineers ran over 1 million rounds through prototypes. That was to verify structural integrity and mechanical consistency before it ever hit the civilian market. That kind of background isn't a marketing slogan. That's a pedigree stamped out of military necessity. Now here's where it matters for someone hunting the best handguns for SHTF survival. If you want a handgun that's built to modern combat expectations, the FN509 is basically a rolling fortress. The slide and cold hammer forged barrel are cut from high-grade stainless steel. Then FN hits it with a specialized ferritic nitrocarburizing coating. That finish fights corrosion hard, even if you're wading through saltwater swamps, stuck in non-stop downpours, or sweating all over the gun on a long bug-out hike. The grip texture is seriously aggressive, and you get multiple interchangeable backstraps. So it locks into your hand like a vise, even if your palms are slick with mud or blood. Inside the gun, the trigger system and the dual recoil spring assembly are built for heavy-duty field use. The priority is clean, repeatable function, without choking out from carbon buildup, even after hundreds of rounds, with no real cleaning kit. And here's what matters in the real world. A lot of these models come from the factory ready for modern red dot optics, while still keeping suppressor height backup iron sights. That's aiming redundancy, in chaos, in low light, when you don't get a do-over. It makes this list because it's the peak of modern ruggedized manufacturing. A workhorse, combat-grade reliability, with genuinely strong ergonomics. The kind of pistol that still runs when the environment is trying to kill it. Let's break it down. Pros first. You get excellent optic readiness right out of the box. Fully ambidextrous controls, so you can run it from weird positions. Or if your strong hand gets injured, and you're getting military-era endurance that's tough to beat. Now the trade-offs. The factory trigger is often called gritty and a little heavy, especially by purists. And in a post-collapse world, finding spare proprietary magazines could be a lot harder compared to some of our higher-ranked options. Now let's talk money. This one is a solid long-term preparedness investment. Manufacturer's suggested retail price sits around $700 to $800, depending on the configuration, tactical, or standard. Street price at major retailers usually lands around $600 to $650. And if you're hunting used, gun broker, pawn shop glass cases, local deals, you can often snag a perfectly functional FN509 for $500 to $550. The value stays strong because experienced shooters know these pistols are overbuilt and they'll outlast their owners. Next up, Ruger GP100 Revolver. Now we've got to add some context, especially when talking wheel guns in a modern tactical survival mindset. The GP100 showed up in the late 1980s. It replaced the older Security 6 line, and it was designed with one brutal goal: handle an essentially unlimited diet of full house .357 Magnum, without shooting loose and without timing problems. Unlike classic Smith & Wesson revolvers that use a relatively delicate side plate for access, Ruger went with a thick, solid frame design That makes it insanely robust and very capable of handling scary chamber pressures. Now let's get into why this thing is a survival powerhouse. The GP100 is built like a bank vault, forged from massive chunks of stainless steel. It can take physical abuse, crushing impacts, and hard environmental neglect in a long grid-down scenario. Modern semi-autos can start failing in ways people don't think about. Weak magazine springs, lost base plates, extraction problems from fouled chambers. This revolver sidesteps those failure points. There's no magazine to drop in the snow, no feed ramp to baby, no extractor claw to chip on steel-cased ammo. You just run that heavy, deliberate double-action trigger, the cylinder rotates, and a fresh round lines up with the firing pin. Using a robust transfer bar safety system, and the modular grip peg is a big deal. You can swap grips easily, so the gun can go from bare hands in summer to thick insulated gloves in the depth of winter. That heavy barrel and full underlug also do work. They tame the violent recoil of Magnum cartridges, so follow-up shots can be faster and more accurate than you'd expect out of a heavy Magnum revolver. It ranks here for one reason: mechanical immortality, and the ammo flexibility gives you a huge logistics advantage. You can run hard-hitting .357 Magnum for big game defense or barrier penetration, and you can also run common .38 Special for small game and practice, which matters when you're scavenging whatever ammo you can find. Now the pros: unmatched structural strength, no reliance on fragile external magazines, and multi-caliber versatility, which becomes critical when supply lines go dry. Now the downsides: this thing is heavy on the belt all day, about 40 ounces unloaded, and you're limited to a 6-round cylinder with a much slower reload, even with speed loaders. But for the money, this is the kind of purchase you pass down to your grandkids. Now pricing. The original suggested retail price is famously steep, often $900 to over $1,000 for current production. In real life, a brand new one at your local gun shop is usually $800 to $850. But the secondary market is where the GP100 shows its staying power, because they basically never break. They hold value aggressively, rarely dipping below $650 to $700 in auctions or private sales. It's a pricey buy-in, but it's an heirloom-grade survival tool. That needs essentially zero spare parts. Now, if you're watching this on a TV in your living room, grab your phone, open YouTube, drop a quick comment. I want to hear where you stand on this list so far. Do you prefer modern polymer striker-fired capacity or the brute force dependability of heavy steel revolvers? Let me know. Moving along, Beretta 92 M9 lineage. Now we're stepping into a legend of the modern battlefield. The Beretta 92, specifically tied to the military M9 history. To really appreciate this Italian classic, you've got to look at the long, debated track record. For more than 3 decades, this platform served as the standard issue sidearm for the United States Armed Forces. It replaced the venerable 1911 in 1985, and it lived in American holsters through blistering desert storms in the Middle East, freezing mountain ranges in Afghanistan, dense urban combat zones all over the planet. It proved itself on an international scale. Now here's the engineering reason it matters for the best handguns for SHTF survival. The defining feature is that cutaway open slide design. And it's not just pretty Italian styling. It's practical. It exposes almost the entire top of the barrel. And because the ejection port is basically the whole slide, it nearly eliminates the classic stovepipe malfunction, where an empty case gets trapped during ejection. If a round fires in a Beretta, that brass is leaving the gun. Period. Then you've got the locking block system, a smart design inspired by the Walther P38. It lets the barrel move straight back horizontally under recoil, instead of tilting like most modern pistols. That straight-line recoil impulse makes it smooth and helps deliver excellent inherent mechanical accuracy. The double-action, single-action trigger gives you a long, heavy, deliberate first pull, which acts like a built-in safety under stress, then lighter, cleaner follow-up shots, and the forged aluminum alloy frame keeps weight more manageable. Even though it's a big full-size duty gun, it earns a spot because it's a proven veteran, refined in awful environments. And here's the underrated survival angle. Because of the sheer volume of military surplus parts, high-capacity sand-resistant magazines, and duty holsters across the United States. Replacement components in a collapsed society will likely be easier to find than with most other platforms. Now the real-world pros and cons. On the plus side, you get a buttery slide that feels like it's rolling on glass, very strong reliability with spent case ejection, and a massive, affordable surplus logistics ecosystem. Now the trade-offs. That grip is thick and bulky, and it can be tough for smaller hands. And the slide-mounted safety and decocker. Some folks find it awkward under pressure, especially in a violent encounter. Now let's talk money. This is where the Beretta really shines. Manufacturer suggested retail price for a new Beretta 92FS sits around $800. Walk into a major sporting goods store, and you'll usually see street pricing around $650 to $700. But here's the survivalist secret. Because so many police departments and military branches have moved to lighter polymer striker-fired pistols over the last decade, the used market is flooded with trade-ins. You can often grab a rugged, fully functional surplus Beretta, cosmetically scratched, for $450 to $500. That makes it one of the best value plays in the preparedness world today. Coming in next, Smith & Wesson M&P9 version 2.0. Now this one is a heavy hitter in polymer durability, but you need a little history to appreciate what version 2.0 actually fixed. The original military and police line was created to challenge the dominance of European polymer pistols in U.S. law enforcement. Then the second generation, the 2.0, took that foundation and rebuilt it for hard, unforgiving duty use. It was designed to answer critiques from military and tactical professionals who demanded maximum frame rigidity and serious traction in brutal weather. Now here's the technical side that matters for survival. A lot of polymer pistols use small metal inserts for the slide to ride on, but the 2.0 uses an extended rigid stainless steel chassis embedded deep through the length of the frame. That steel skeleton reduces frame flex and torque, especially with high-pressure defensive ammo, which helps keep cycling consistent and reduces long-term wear on internal parts. Outside the gun, the grip texture is famous. It feels like medium grit sandpaper. And yeah, it can be abrasive against skin during daily concealed carry. But in survival conditions, hands caked in freezing mud, slick in heavy rain, or covered in blood, that texture keeps the gun anchored. It stays glued to your palm, no shifting. The trigger was also refined from the first generation. Cleaner break, more predictable feel, and a reset you can actually hear and feel. That matters when adrenaline is dumping, and your fine motor skills start going away. And in independent mud, fine sand, and deep freeze ice tests, its performance repeatedly ranks at the top, often beating its famous Austrian rival in severely fouled and dry conditions. This pistol earns a high spot for one reason: mechanical toughness, plus outstanding ergonomics right out of the box. It gives you rigidity and grip security you need when you're moving rough terrain in a post-collapse world. Now pros and cons. The advantages are obvious. Ergonomics are excellent. The 18-degree grip angle mimics the natural point of aim of a 1911. That embedded steel chassis is a durability monster. And reliability in harsh conditions is the stuff of legend. Downside, that grip texture can chew up clothing, and it can beat up your hands over time. And the hinged trigger shoe design, some shooters hate it and replace it with aftermarket flat-face triggers. Now the numbers. Manufacturer pricing generally runs $600 to $650, but street price is the real story. Major retailers often have brand new models on sale around $500 to $550. And on the used market, this thing can be a steal. Lightly used examples show up constantly for $400 to $450. For the military-grade engineering, the durable Armornite corrosion-resistant finish, and the reliability you're getting, that price point is hard to beat in today's economy. Number 2, SIG Sauer P320. Now we're shifting to a platform that rewrote the rules. To understand why it matters in survival, you've got to recognize what it did in modern military history. The P320, adopted under the M17 and M18 designations, won the U.S. Army Modular Handgun System contract. It officially replaced the aging fleet of Beretta M9s. That contract matters. It guarantees ongoing production, a huge aftermarket, and wide logistical availability for decades. Now the engineering miracle. The reason the P320 is such a survival tool is the fire control unit. Traditional pistols treat the external frame as the serialized, legally regulated part. Not here. On the SIG, the serialized part is a self-contained stainless steel chassis. That chassis holds the trigger group, the sear, and the slide rails, and you can pop it out of the polymer grip module in seconds with no specialized gunsmith tools. So why does that matter when society breaks? Because modularity becomes survival insurance. You can own one serialized fire control unit and keep a backpack full of cheap polymer grip modules, plus different slide lengths. In seconds, by a dim campfire, you can convert a small concealed carry subcompact, used for quiet scavenging runs, into a full-size high-capacity fighting pistol, with a weapon light for defending a fortified homestead. The internal striker system is robust. It gives you a smooth, consistent trigger that helps accuracy. And the slide serrations are aggressive, so manipulation is easier. Even with heavy winter tactical gloves, this modularity has another huge benefit. If a polymer grip module cracks from a hard impact against a rock, the gun isn't dead. You're not defenseless. You drop the steel unit into a new polymer module, and you're back in the fight. It ranks here because adaptability is often overlooked, and it's critical for long-term survival. One core mechanism, rapidly configurable for different needs, plus the reality of military logistics and civilian aftermarket support, makes the P320 a serious preparedness powerhouse. Now the practical pros and cons. Pros include the ability to change calibers from 9mm to 40 Smith & Wesson to 357 SIG and swap frame sizes quickly. You also get a great factory trigger and backing from current military supply chains. Cons. It has a slightly higher bore axis than some competitors, which can add muzzle flip for newer shooters. And the internal mechanism inside the fire control unit is a little more complex, so deep cleaning in the field can be trickier than older striker fire designs. Now pricing. The manufacturer's suggested retail range typically runs $650 to $750, depending on night sights, optic cuts, or upgraded X-series flat triggers. Street price for a standard new model usually sits around $600. Used market is active. Police trade-ins and gently used civilian variants often land $450 to $550. But here's the financial advantage people miss. Spare parts. If you want to change grip size, texture, or color, a new polymer grip module is usually $40 to $60. That makes it one of the cheapest guns to repair or reconfigure in the field. And finally, the top pick, the king of the best handguns for SHTF survival, the Glock 19. We've got to rewind to the early 1980s. Gaston Glock, an Austrian engineer with no prior firearms manufacturing background, disrupted the entire industry. He paired advanced polymer molding with a brutally simple striker-fired system, and people mocked it as a plastic toy. Then it proved itself reliable, tough, nearly indestructible. The compact Model 19 followed the original 17, and it hit a near-perfect balance. Concealability, magazine capacity, real fighting capability. Now, if you look at the Glock 19 through a pure survival lens, this is utilitarian perfection. No, it's not the most ergonomic pistol ever made. No, it doesn't have the lightest, crispest target trigger. But here's what it does have: an internal design so simple it practically refuses to fail. The Glock 19 is made up of only 34 individual parts. That minimalist approach means fewer things can break, fewer things can bind, fewer things can snap, and fewer things can rust. When everything goes sideways, the slide and cold hammer forged polygonal barrel get advanced surface treatments that fight salt water, sweat, and blood better than traditional bluing ever could. And the polymer frame helps too. It absorbs recoil, and it flexes microscopically under stress, instead of cracking like brittle metal can. But the real reason it takes number one is field maintenance. You can fully strip a Glock 19 down to pins, springs, and connectors using one simple punch. In a desperate situation, that punch can be a sturdy nail, a stick, even a pen. No heavy workbench, no vise, no professional gunsmith. If a trigger spring breaks deep in the wilderness, you can replace it by campfire light in under 5 minutes. The standard 15-round flush-fit magazine gives strong, reliable firepower, and the pistol will also accept bigger mags, 17, 24, even 33-round magazines from larger Glock models. That's serious scalability. The Glock 19 takes the top spot for one undeniable reason: logistical dominance. It's one of the most widely carried, widely supported defensive pistols on Earth. In a long-term collapse, Glock magazines, spare parts, and 9mm ammunition effectively become currency. Owning a Glock 19 is like buying an insurance policy, because parts show up everywhere. Every abandoned police cruiser, every emptied gun shop, every corner of the globe. Now the pros and cons. Pros: endless aftermarket support, mechanical simplicity, idiot-proof maintenance, and a reliability track record that's basically unmatched. Cons: small but real. Those factory polymer sights are famously fragile, and they should be swapped for steel sights immediately. And the grip angle can feel unnatural to shooters raised on traditional metal frame pistols, so it can take a little learning curve to master the presentation. Now let's talk money. Glock has kept pricing predictable for years. Manufacturers suggested retail price is about $600 for a standard Generation 5 model. Walk into almost any gun store in the country, and street price is usually $500 to $550. Used market is interesting. Glock 19 hold value like precious metals, unless one is abused, neglected, or butchered with terrible custom work. It's rare to find a functional used Glock 19 under $400 to $450. It's a buy that doesn't really depreciate, and that makes it a smart financial and tactical choice for serious survival-minded people. To wrap this up, when you're standing on the razor's edge, in a hostile environment, fancy looks and complicated, over-engineered systems can get you killed. Real survival comes down to brutal simplicity, mechanical reliability, and a supply chain you can tap into when shelves are empty. The handguns we covered today aren't cool tools. They're mechanical lifelines, built to get you and your family home when the rest of the world falls apart. Now I'm kicking it over to you. Which of these handguns would you trust with your life and your family's lives in a true SHTF scenario? And did we miss a hidden gem, a pistol that deserves a spot on this list? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because real-world experience from the community is what makes this place valuable. And if you like this deep dive breakdown, hit that like button. If you want the Armory to make a detailed follow-up guide on how to properly scavenge for ammunition and correctly store your firearms for long-term grid-down scenarios, stay safe, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one. This is the Armory signing off.